everyone. Thank you, Simon, for the introduction. I've literally just come home. I've been in Australia for 7 years. I came back for the weather, and I really missed the prawn sandwiches at M&S. So after that, the main thing that I kind of was taught in Australia was one big thing. I think the greatest quality of Australia is its optimism. I really felt it in the 7 years I was there, felt it every day. It's a positive nation. I came back to the UK about 4 months ago, started reading the news, and it was all doom and gloom. But what I realised is I came back to the UK with completely fresh eyes. And what I realised is that this country is so rich, so deep. I've also lived in the US, and compared to those two countries, there's a vibrancy to our people that you don't really feel anywhere else in the world. So I thought it would be a really good idea to kind of capture that spirit. So at Havas, what we've done over the last 2 months is gone on a journey across Britain to understand British culture. And I think for me, this was kind of the reality that I was facing. You could probably all relate to this. You kind of watch the news on TV, you're kind of scrolling on your phone. It feels like we've got persistent challenges, a sluggish economy, low consumer confidence. It just feels like there's a lot of doom and gloom. So the whole purpose of this presentation and the research that we commissioned was to try and challenge that gloomy status quo and also try and reimagine a bit of a brighter future for this year in 2025. And I think for us, the purpose of this research was to try and get into the heart of Britain, to understand what's shaping culture, go and spend time with people in their homes, on the streets, go to really interesting events, and try and understand what British culture is. And I think for us as agencies and brands, we hear this word a lot, the word culture. It's quite a loaded word in our industry. And I think it's always quite difficult to try and define a meaning for culture. As we've been working on the project, there was this really beautiful definition of culture. And I think culture at its very essence is very personal. It's deeply personal to people. It's about the things in their lives. It's about the things that they care about, the people and places they interact with. This is actually a definition by Dr. Marcus Collin, which is culture is the making of meaning. We thought that was really powerful, and hopefully in the next 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to demonstrate what the meaning of culture is in Britain. The other thing we wanted to do, like I said, is just get out there and talk to the great British public. There's so many interesting, vibrant people that we wanted to capture their spirit. I think there's no substitute to primary research, getting out there, talking to people, because the most dangerous place you can do marketing from is behind a desk. So that's what we did. We basically, over the last 2 months, we travelled up and down the UK, talking to interesting people. Our methodology had 3 key elements to it. The first was we did an ethnographic study of 6 people, and we wanted to talk to those people at a milestone moment in their life. So this was a poignant moment of change where they're really feeling something happening in their life, and it's kind of a big moment. So that was really interesting. We spoke to 6 amazing British people from across the UK, really diverse mix of people. Here's who we spoke to. We spoke to people in Liverpool, here in Manchester, down in Cornwall, and it was kind of a really good kind of snapshot of British people and what they're thinking and feeling. And then these were their milestone moments. So a big part of this presentation will be a collection of films that I'm going to share in a minute. Here's just an example of some of the milestone moments that will be captured in the film. Rebecca on the top left there, she actually had her second baby 2 days before we started filming. And we were like, are you sure you're okay for us to film you? She's like, yeah, just come into my home and film me. I think that captures the essence of what it is to be British, that resilience and just getting on with it. So that was a really interesting story, and you'll see that. Isaac in Cornwall is on the journey of transitioning. We spoke to someone who's recently divorced, someone who's selling their family home. So these were kind of big, pivotal moments that were captured on film that you'll see in a minute. The second thing we wanted to do is go into, we call them communities of interest. So we wanted to go into places where people had a shared passion, and they were sharing that love of something with other people. So again, we went across the UK and we visited loads of really interesting events. We went to a machinery fair up in Yorkshire, which had farmers. We went to a car boot sale in Glasgow, which was fascinating. We went to a drag show in Bradford. We spoke to Welsh rugby fans during the Six Nations. And we just captured their thoughts and feelings and how they were thinking about the year ahead. And then the last thing we did was, there's nothing more powerful than just going out onto the streets and talking to people. So that's what we did. We went and did 50 Vox Pops, and that was really fascinating. And I think this is kind of a capture and a snapshot of British culture right there on this slide. I think it kind of demonstrates diversity. Everyone we spoke to was so positive, so interesting, and it was just great to go to 6 different cities around the UK and capture their thoughts and feelings. So they were the 3 elements to our methodology. We did ethnographic research, we then went to some events, and then we also did the Vox Pops. What we wanted to do, the first film that I'm going to share, we tried to bottle that spirit that I was talking about at the beginning of this talk, which was this kind of amazing, positive spirit that feels like it's in Britain and beyond the headlines. So this is just a film that captures that spirit and feeling that we've been talking about.
Is Britain truly broken? That's the question that's being asked across the country.
So like I said, it was really interesting for me personally to kind of go on the road, talk to all these people, visit events, go into their homes. I think it kind of goes against what we're reading in the news. Like I said, there's very much headlines of doom and gloom. There's a positivity and a spirit there that's captured beautifully, I think. But the other thing we did was we kind of dug a little bit deeper, spent a lot of time with these people, and 3 big themes emerged that we're then going to explore through individual films as I take you through this talk. The first big theme was this idea of belonging. So this is about where people feel part of something bigger than themselves, where they feel at home, either with a community or with other people. The second big theme was this idea of pride. This is definitely not about identity politics and British identity. This is about personal pride and really people overcoming their fears and doubts and trying to identify what's going to motivate them in the year ahead. The second big one, and the reason why we identified these milestone moments, is that we believe change is good, and we believe that change is this kind of powerful force that can take you to new places. It can add meaning to your life. So you'll definitely see in the film that I share on that, it's a very powerful couple of stories that we're going to share. And then the last one was optimism. So this is all about being positive, moving forward, kind of embracing the spirit of optimism in a really interesting way. So what we're going to do now, we're going to change the tone a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through these films individually. They're about 2 minutes each, so sit back and enjoy them. They feature our 6 really interesting British people. They've got amazing stories to tell. So what we'll do, we'll go through each film, and then after each film what I'll do is there's a little slide which starts to highlight some of the language that the people are talking about. So we'll start with belonging.
It's funny because I love London, I love lots of things about London, but I kind of knew that if I didn't move back then, that I would probably just never leave. And I kind of really missed home. Scousers are well known for their hospitality, but actually I think the thing that people come away from Liverpool when they've come for the first time is like how friendly everyone is. Community is an interesting one, and I think it's about finding your tribe. I definitely think it means different things in different places. Northerners, for example, will bond on community being community spirit. Particularly somewhere like Liverpool, I think you're much more likely to get a lot of assistance, like not just like your bog standard, like let's pick you up and dust you off, but like you end up having a chat about your nan and why don't we go out for lunch, why don't we do this, why don't we do that, and you know your neighbours.
My childhood wasn't the norm. I would say 14 to 17 would be where I was like figuring out who I was, but it was very much in secret. And I was almost living like a double life. Maybe even 21, that was my new start, because I came out and I started transitioning. I remember the first time that I ever found out what the LGBT community was. And suddenly I was like, oh my God, the T in LGBT is me. Everything just opened up and it suddenly made so much sense as to like why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. The queer community in Bristol has been life-changing, I would say. It kind of helped me explore who I was, and it's a nice way to be connected to other people that are the same as you. You all have one kind of connecting factor, and that's quite nice.
So I think both Rebecca and Isaac were so brave there to share their story. I think Isaac's story especially is really inspiring. And I think some of the language that came out of that film were things like friendly, community. Rebecca talks about this idea of tribes and how people belong in tribes and they feel a sense of home and connection. So we're starting to explore some really interesting language that connects with people. The second film is all about pride.
Being pregnant with a toddler is another thing.
Oh, child. You're being dramatic.
So it's been quite interesting because, I mean, to be fair, he's quite bright for a 2-year-old, but he's still just 2. I've got some really nice photos of him holding him in hospital. I wasn't quite expecting it to happen then. So it was just an absolute roller coaster, but I think it's a real testament to women and how strong they can be, because, you know, it was a shock and it was painful, but I didn't have time for much pain relief because it was so quick. It's just amazing what women's bodies can do, I think. You can just have this amazing life event and then nurture your child and your body's recovering, but you just crack on.
When your fears and doubts are, oh, is he better than me, is this, just that, a lot of the time it's in your mind, you know. If you push yourself, you can achieve, and that's something. That's why I love the boxing journey, because it just it gives you that, iron will, I like to call it. But I started doing physique shows, and it took me to loads of different countries like Ireland, Lithuania, Cyprus, and I was on stage. It was quite a lonely time in my life because I was kind of cut off from people, but I felt really good because I was on stage getting these trophies and things. I was in the best shape I've ever been in. When you dedicate your mind, you can achieve these great things. But I don't mean this in an arrogant way, and I'm not arrogant in the slightest, but I feel like everything that I've kind of I've done myself. I like to motivate other people. I like to see people succeed.
So it just felt beautifully uplifting to hear those two stories. I think Alex's story especially was beautiful, how he started to compete professionally. And again, Rebecca was talking about some really beautiful language. They talked about this idea of fears and doubts and overcoming them to feel motivated. Again, that feels really empowering. The third theme is change. This is probably one of the most powerful films. It's about 2.5 minutes long. Again, a couple of stories from our 6th ethno-respondents. So this one is change.
I love the idea of life changing. I love change. Probably one of the happiest times of my life was the lockdown of 2020. Up until that point, I had been so incredibly busy, grinding to just make my career work and moving around and traveling, and everything got cancelled, everything got shut down, and I found myself back with my grandparents and my mum.
So this chapter of my life is super scary. I've left a marriage of 24 years. I am a single parent. It's just a crazy situation to be in when you're 47 and you've got your whole life ahead of you, so it's super exciting as well as super scary.
I decided that I needed to do something to be of service. I'm a singer and I'm known for that around here, and a friend of mine whose 93-year-old grandmother was shielding on her own in the house. This friend of mine asked me if I'd go and surprise and sing at the end of the driveway just to cheer her up. And I did that. I sang in the car park at Tesco's and care home gardens, and I also made an album. And I think there's such good memories associated with this album. It actually raised £22,000 for Hospice at Home West Cumbria. I feel like this is probably what got me through that time as well. Change is good.
So the move to Bristol, that started off as more of a romantic gesture. When I met Hugo, I was not singing at all, and his first question to me was, why aren't you singing? And I was like, because when I was a singer, it was 25 years ago. But I thought of it as in my past. And so meeting Hugo and becoming installed in the creative atmosphere of the church in Bristol, and it really, really massively inspired me. So I did start singing again, and I released 2 new singles. It turns out that my life is becoming incredible. In the past year, I've learned that I'm a hell of a lot stronger than I thought. I'm so brave. I'm really proud of my strength. I'm a badass woman, and I didn't know it. I knew it, and then I forgot it, and now I've remembered it.
So again, beautifully powerful stories there. And some of the language that they were talking about. You know, there's obviously a tension there about grinding stuff through. I thought Billy's example of moving back to Cumbria was beautiful and how he's helping his elderly grandparents. But they were both inspiring and brave. So you can start to see we're starting to build an interest in language of British culture. And then the last film that I'm going to share is the one on optimism.
I think the biggest test for British people in the future in general is going to be trying to stay sane and trying to not lose themselves in the chaos and the circus.
You're on your own journey. Don't look at anyone else. You know, everyone's different. Keep marching forward no matter how difficult times get.
And I have to start with this, it has to be positivity. You have to just face it head on.
It's good that, you know, good stuff, man. Good stuff, man. I feel quite positive within myself, and I think that's the main thing, is feeling positive within yourself above anything else.
Basically, the fact that we have decided now to close the Romford chapter by selling the house. And it's emotionally draining because you have to leave behind all the memories, but then there's this part of me which is kind of excited to start something new. It just feels like a sense of relief that we don't have the responsibility of the house anymore. It's different now. I can plan things for my in-laws and my mom rather than focus on the house. I'm hoping to plan a little holiday, not too far away. As they say, one chapter closes and the other opens.
I definitely have hope, and I definitely have optimism, because I believe that fundamentally human beings are created with goodness in them.
You can't choose what life throws at you. The only way you can control it is to control your reaction to what life throws at you. As long as you're happy, that is the only thing that matters.
So hopefully from those 4 films you can start to see this beautiful language that's being expressed from the people that we spoke to and all of their inspiring stories. And I think when you look at this language, it's a beautiful tapestry of people's feelings, and that is culture. Because like I said at the beginning, culture is the making of meaning. It's things that feel deeply personal to people. And I think, you know, we definitely live in a country now that feels very divided, but there's way more than unites us. I think if everyone in this room looks at this slide, you can see little words there that mean something to you. And I think this is the language of us. This is the language of Britain. I'm really proud to call Britain home. Like I said, I've only just arrived back. Very proud of this country, proud of the people. The last 2 months has kind of reaffirmed that in me. I've been super inspired. I've been feeling empowered by all the powerful stories that I've been listening to. And I think, you know, I think there's a conditioning in the industry where we kind of always try and find a tension or an enemy to fight against. I also think there's another way to do it, which is just celebrate the positives. And I do think if you look at in any category, in any brand, there's lots of brands that are really invisible, trying to push their way into conversations. And I think what this ethnographic study has kind of shown is there's a language that connects us, that brands can tap into. And I think that's really important. And we think at Havas that the brands that will thrive in the next decade are those that really understand how to pull people into their world. I think what I'd love to see in 2025 is brands that feel full of possibility, full of encouragement, full of wonder, full of fun, capture some of the spirit of the stuff that I've just shared. And I think if we can just, as a creative industry, just go out and celebrate our positives, I think that would be a really powerful thing. So I'm hoping that in the last 12 to 13 minutes kind of inspired you, given you a little window into the world of Britain, and you can feel really positive about the year ahead. Thank you.